Good day to all of you. My name is Angela De Vera, and today I'm going to present my paper entitled The Filipino Approach Towards Irreligious Culture. Here are the parts of the paper, namely abstract and introduction, arguments for and against God as foundation of morality, understanding atheists and atheist arrogance, the need for interfaith dialogue, and lastly, the conclusion. For my abstract, my paper seeks to answer whether or not atheists have morality. Secondly, it presents a problem to the atheistic intellectual arrogance as and how this affects the Philippine approach towards atheism. Lastly, I brought up the need for interfaith dialogue as this can help resolve the problem between non-believers and the believers. The Philippines is the highest percentage of believing in God because we have many Christians, Catholics, and Muslims in the country, and those other people who believe in God. But what about the secular organizations such as the Filipino Free Thinkers and the Philippine Atheistic and Agnostic Society? Yes, these are recognized secular organizations, but our knowledge about the atheists in the Philippines is limited because we have little to no qualitative and quantitative researches in the Philippines about the atheists. Now let's delve in for the arguments for and against God as foundation of morality. William Lane Craig is a Christian theologian who defended that God is a necessary from as a foundation for morality. He offers two premises, and I only focus on on the first premise because if the first premise is objected, then the whole argument of Craig is debunked. The first premise states that if theism is true, then we have a sound foundation for morality. The second premise is just the opposite of the first premise. Critics defended the first premise in such a way that we must look at God's attributes and reflect ourselves on actions, if these actions are good or bad. God's attributes, as we all know, that it is the all perfect attributes. Also, I raised the beautiful question against these arguments of great. The beautiful question is that if evil is hated by the God because it is bad, or if evil is bad because it is hated by the gods. The first question implies that morality is independent, while the other question implies that morality is arbitrary. For example, just because God commands you to love your neighbors, that doesn't mean, for the sake of argument, that you should love who killed your father or mother. If God commands us to kill someone, that doesn't make action is good. The UT probe question poses a problem to the divine command theory. The divine command theory states that actions, no matter how horrible it is morally obligatory because God commanded it. However, William Lane Craig responded that it is not that any action could be morally obligatory even if it is bad, contrary to the main main definition of the divine command theory. But it is with God's divine nature, according to Craig, that places the restrictions of what God could command or could be morally obligatory. However, I raised the question of who decided what the nature of God will be. If the answer is that God's nature is decided by himself or by itself, then it it, it just pushes back the question of that morality is arbitrary. Understand atheists in the Philippines and atheistic arrogance. Atheistic transition is finding autonomy. Atheists tend to be more radical with their beliefs, similar to a youth who decided to separate with his or her own parents, which posits some degree of arrogance. According to the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, there are four transitions of the atheistic autonomy. First, they subscribe to theism. Secondly, they love theism, and they turn away from theism, and lastly, they embrace atheism. This research was conducted by the University of the Philippines, where they asked 13 college students who are atheists. Okay, so here is the quote from the University of the Philippines atheist circle. The problem with you theists, the problem with you trying to theists is that you don't question anything. Kuha kaya ng kuha. You just keep on observing. Most atheists have different stories to tell, and most of them have happy lives. The only difference with that is that they ask, and it is through asking that they find some answers. The concern with this quotation, with this, or what the University of the Philippine Atheist Circle says, is that it posits some degree of arrogance to the theists or to the believers. That's why it affects the perspective of the Filipino towards the atheists or towards the atheist people in general. Lastly, I brought up the interfaith dialogue because it is to understand that we must not repeat the other world. We should come up with a grounded or common understanding between two or more beliefs to understand deeply why these beliefs are being held, and lastly, the interfaith dialogue must be practiced. Yeah, for my conclusion, morality is independent, and atheists do have morality even if they don't believe in God, or even if that God doesn't exist. Also, the presence of arrogance and endless debate continues to create conflict and division of belief systems. The importance of interfaith dialogue must be magnified. And thirdly, the opportunities of researchers to the limited atheistic literature in the Philippines is or can be offered by this paper. Here are my references. Thank you very much and stay safe.